What's up, everybody? I'm Chris Dailey, founder of the Sports Court, joined here by none other than one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL, Mike McGlinchey. Mike, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. And you grew up in a really athletic family. Your cousin is NFL MVP, Matt Ryan. So growing up, what was your relationship with Matt like? And when was the moment that you realized you could follow in your older cousin's footsteps and possibly do football as a career?
So Matt is he's my aunt's son. He's my first cousin. He was 10 years older than me. We went to obviously went to the same high school, but not at the same time. I trained with him and his older brother Mike and his younger brother John every summer when we would go down to the Jersey Shore. We would all work out together from the time Matt was in college, when I was starting up in early high school and stuff like that. And so we were a tight family. And probably the moment that I realized that I wanted to chase the football dream was actually at Matt's draft. So Matt was drafted third overall in, I think, 2008, and obviously by the Falcons. And that year, the first overall pick was a guy named Jake Long, who was an offensive tackle from Michigan. And my family, the draft was held in Radio City in New York at the time, so it was only a short train ride from Philly. And so we went up that day for Matt's draft, and when we got up there, we went to the family section of where the top invited draft picks were sitting for the day or whatever. And Jake Long was across the room with his family, and he was a huge dude, big, strong, super cut up. And at the time, I was chasing a tight end dream and thinking I may be a quarterback like Matt or something like that. And Matt's older brother, Mike, we call him Mott's, looks at me and he says, in 10 years, if you do everything you're supposed to do, that could be you. And I was like, whoa. And Jake, actually, it was kind of weird. He had already signed with the Dolphins before the draft even started. So he was the bona fide number one overall pick no matter what was happening. And so I had already known he was the first overall pick. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool to be, even though he's an offensive lineman, he's the first overall pick in the NFL draft. And that's when playing offensive line kind of became a cool thing for me to do. It started a dream. It set a goal for me, and it was sitting in the family lounge in Radio City Music Hall when I was in 8th grade, getting ready to watch my cousin get drafted to the Falcons. And that's when my dream kind of materialized and started. Obviously, everybody grows up thinking, oh, maybe how cool would it be to play in the NFL? But that was the first time it actually seemed like a real goal for me. And thanks to my cousin Mike, because he kind of set it in motion.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you really went on to Notre Dame, which is one of, if not the most historic college football program. So you really went to the right place to prosper and develop. And Notre Dame, recent times, it's known as O-Line U because of all the great offensive linemen from Zach Martin to Ronnie Stanley to Quenton Nelson to yourself. So what makes Notre Dame so good at developing offensive linemen, from the program itself to Harry Hestead, who was your coach at the time?
You did your research, man. That's awesome. Absolutely. It was Harry. Harry, he recruited. He started coaching at Notre Dame right after my junior year. So going into my junior year of spring, I was playing hoops at the time, and I just finished a really good junior football season. I was starting to get offers from kind of all over the place, and that was when he first got the job, was that January. And later on that spring, I got my offer from Notre Dame, which is the one I always was waiting for. It was the only place I ever wanted to go to school. And I guess, a lot of other guys felt the same way. And we all committed to Harry. We wanted to play for him. And then when we got there, I've never been around somebody that develops people, that teaches so well, in the way that to prepare to be a professional, to be, he treated us like pros from the moment we walked on campus. And that was a really cool, eye-opening experience. And you had to learn how to play hard, play tough, do everything the right way. And you learned football under him. And obviously Notre Dame in and of itself is a pretty easy place to recruit offensive linemen with such a rich history there. And then when we all got there and played as hard as we could, and we had such a close connection, the success kind of started coming in waves. And it was really cool that Zach started that tradition for us under Harry. and becoming an All-American his senior year. And then we all kind of followed in line after that. And then it was Ronnie and Nick, and then it was Q and I, and then it was these next crop of guys that just came out this year. And so we've had a really, really, really good run at ND with O linemen. I hope it continues. I think Coach Quinn and Coach Kelly have been doing a great job over there. So I know they got a group of young guys that are coming up now because they have to replace 4 guys. But it was the environment at Notre Dame in general, and we had one hell of a coach in Harry Heastan that we all feel that we owe our careers to.
Yeah, and I hope the success continues as well because we got a few quarterbacks coming in too. I know Tyler Buchner's coming in. He's this 5-star recruit, so hopefully they can protect him and he can do great things as well. I want to talk about your first year as a starter at Notre Dame in 2015, a year in which Notre Dame had a lot of success, and you mentioned playing alongside Ronnie Stanley and all these great guys. So what did you learn from just watching their game at practice and playing alongside and really competing alongside not just these great offensive linemen, but your best friends?
Yeah, I think that was it was an unbelievable environment for us to continue to chase being great. Like you said, they were, and they still are, my best friends. Those guys are an unbelievable group of dudes that we were very, very lucky to all have gotten recruited to that school, and we were all very similar in the way that we grew up and the way that we wanted to go about playing football. And I think Harry had a little bit of a piece in that. He got us all thinking the same way. He got us all acting the same way, and he forced being close on top of us, and that was kind of a cool thing. But it was, in 15, I started 2 games before in 4, or a game and a half. I guess I started 1 game and played a full game. So I played in 2 games as a tackle in 14 in my redshirt freshman year, and then I took over as the starter the next year. And that group was a pretty talented offensive line group. We had Ronnie at left tackle, Q at left guard, Nick Martin at center, Steve Elmer at right guard, who, if he had chosen to continue to play football, he would have done a really, really good job at this level. And then myself at right tackle. And that was probably one of the coolest groups I'd ever been a part of. We had all worked extremely hard, and we pushed each other every day to be better. And Ronnie and I had a really close relationship, especially of that year. It was his last year at school. And so I knew he was the best in the country. And for me, it was like, how cool of an opportunity is that to play alongside the guy that's the best in the country right now, and I can learn from him every single day. And, it's kind of continued for me here at the Niners, where I had Joe Staley my first 2 years, and now I have Trent Williams my second 2 years. So I've been the counterpart, the bookend to a lot of really, really talented offensive tackles, and it's been one of the greatest honors of my career. But it's also helped me in a huge way in developing my own game, so I can keep up with those guys because they're as good as they are, and I get to learn from such great players every single day.
Yeah, it's like a few 49ers know Steve Young. He had to learn under Joe Montana, and now you can even see Jimmy Garoppolo, Brady, and now even Trey Lance with Jimmy Garoppolo. So a lot of that connection, just learning under players there. And while at Notre Dame, you had a lot of great memories from Miles Boykin's catch in the Citrus Bowl, which is one of the greatest football players I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. And as we just mentioned, playing alongside some of your great friends. So for you, what was your all-time greatest moment on the field at Notre Dame?
That's a tough question. I think probably my 5th year, we were, I think, like 6 or 7-1 at the time, and USC came to town on a primetime game. And Josh Adams finished in the top 5 or 10 Heisman Trophy listings that year as a running back, and that game had a ton to do with it. That was kind of what started his little run there. And USC is our number 1 rival at Notre Dame. It's like a 100-year-old rivalry. Unfortunately, I had to stop the rivalry for a year last year with COVID and everything, but it's back on this year, thank God. But when we played them my 5th year, and we beat them like 49-7 or 49-14, and we rushed for about 400 yards, and the offensive line had an unbelievable day. And so playing USC in our rivalry game for the last time and beating them as good as we did was probably my favorite memory on the field at Notre Dame.
It's amazing, and I'm a big Notre Dame fan, so I watch all these games.
I can tell.
Yeah, I'm little Rudy photo back there. It's
Yeah.
all signed by Rudy, and it's nice. And I remember watching the Stanford game against Christian McCaffrey. There's been some really great games, and recently,
Totally.
of course, that Clemson game really stands out above the rest.
No
That
doubt.
was just something else. And Notre Dame, you have a lot of high words. You have yet to say a bad word about Notre Dame so far. I just want to ask you, what does the University of Notre Dame mean to you?
It means the world to me. It's my favorite place in the world. I joke with my teammates here. Every Saturday I come into practice with my blue and gold on, or even green on if it's a green out game or whatever it is. And I'm a homer. I love Notre Dame with all my heart. It changed my life. It was the only place I ever wanted to go to school when I was a kid, and it lived up to the hype when I was there all 5 years. And I made not only is it the greatest football and school combination that you can get in America, but it also attracts some of the best people I've ever met. And I think the greatest thing that Notre Dame ever gave me was some friends that'll last me the rest of my life, and mentors and coaches and teachers that I'll always have relationships with for as long as I live. And that is the coolest place that's the coolest aspect about Notre Dame, is the people that go there and the people that you get to come in contact with through, whether it's alumni or other classmates or teachers or coaches or whoever it is. It's a pretty special place and filled with pretty special people. And there isn't a bad word to say about Notre Dame, in my opinion, other than maybe that it's the coldest place in America to go to school sometimes. But that's the only negative that you'll have about that place.
Yeah, and I have the same words. I interviewed Connell Fagan. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he was a Leprechaun, so he was a great guy too. And so everybody I met at Notre Dame so far have been very, very nice to me, and including you.
Really?
So
Thanks, man.
Yeah. In 2018, you were selected and lived out your dreams, as you mentioned, watching your cousin get drafted. You were selected as the 9th overall pick in one of the greatest draft classes, in my opinion. It will be one of the greatest draft classes when it's all said and done, the 2018 class. So what were your emotions like when you got drafted, and were there any other teams that you thought might pick you before the 49ers?
Yeah. Well, first off, it's the greatest day of my life. It was the coolest. Other than playing in the Super Bowl, it was probably the greatest athletic accomplishment that I had ever had. It was everything that I ever worked my whole life for, and I got to celebrate it around all of my friends and family back home in Philly. And so that was a really, really special night. When John Lynch called my phone, I was pretty surprised. I didn't think the Niners were interested in me. And earlier in the day, I had heard that maybe I was going to Oakland at the next pick at 10. And so I thought that's where I was going to go. I thought maybe I could go to Chicago at 8 because my old Harry had just taken the job there, but they chose to go defense instead. So I didn't think the Niners were interested in me at all. And then out of nowhere, John Lynch called my phone, and I got to talk to him, Jed, and Kyle. And, my life changed forever. It was the best. I'm so fortunate to be drafted here. I think it's one of the greatest organizations in sports. I was very fortunate to have the ownership group that we have, the head coach that we have, the GM that we have. It was a hell of a night, man. It was one of the coolest things that I ever got to feel. It was awesome.
Yeah, I can imagine. And we're watching a lot of rookies right now, including Trey Lance, one of your teammates. And all rookies have a, hey, rookie, welcome to the league moment. I watch it on NFL Network a lot. So did you have a moment in training camp during your rookie season or even during the preseason where you said, oh, this is what the NFL is all about?
Yeah, I did. I had a bad one. So we did joint practices with the Houston Texans that year, and J.J. Watt was my matchup all week. And I grew up, back in 2011, 12, and 13 when he was winning. I think those were the years that he won Defensive Player of the Year. Every year, I was just a high school kid, like idolizing him, from afar. And then all of a sudden, you step onto the field with these guys that you knew are dominant, world-class football players, and it kind of is like throws you off in your head, and you're like, "Oh man, am I ready for this?" And so the first drill we did that week was one-on-one run blocking, and JJ put me flat on my back, and I'll never forget it because I was so nervous and so excited to get going, and it was my first real test other than training camp as a rookie. And Joe Dailey comes over to me and he looks at me and goes, "Well, it can't get any worse than that, so you might as well just relax and play football now." I was like, "Okay, you're right." once something embarrassing happens to you, the pressure kind of, falls off, because it really truly can't get worse than getting put on your back as an offensive lineman. And so I actually wound up having a pretty good week that week, and set me up for having a pretty good rookie year. But thankfully it came in training camp and not in real games.
Yeah, it's a great story there. And
yeah.
After a great rookie year, as you mentioned, in your second year, you also mentioned this, the 49ers made it all the way to the Super Bowl. The Jets sweep took the league by storm, and you had to face Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who, unfortunately for you, had to hoist the Lombardi at the end of the night. Not a lot of people ever talk about the other side of the game. We all hear about the winners, but what was it like in the locker room, from Coach Shanahan's talk at the end, just to that, the emotions, the raw emotions, all 53 guys in the locker room after the game?
Yeah, that was from that day went from one of the coolest days in your life to one of the worst at the same time. We had them. We were 7 or 6.5 or whatever minutes away, up 10. We were up 10 points with 6.5 minutes to go, and we didn't convert a couple first downs. They had a great play on 3rd and 15 that happened, and their good players and great players took over, and unfortunately for us, we came out on the wrong side of that. But it was after the locker room, that was one of the toughest things that I'd ever gotten to deal with, and especially because Joe Staley has become especially then, was he is still one of my best friends, and looking at him after a 13-year career, and the things that he went through and the injuries that he went through all year to keep playing and fighting for our team and playing in that Super Bowl, and looking at him and hugging him and crying, and probably knowing that I knew it was going to be his last game. That was tough. It was really tough for me to deal with. And fortunately, you have your teammates, you have your coaches around you, and you get back and get going for the next year. But that was certainly one of the hardest things that I've ever had to deal with as an athlete.
Yeah, it's very tough, and you don't really ever hear about the other side of it too. And it's crazy. I mean, there's got to be a loser in every game. There's only 2 teams out there, and I want to just And this past season, it's been a very tough one with COVID-19 and everything that really happened in the world. However, you gave back to the San Francisco Bay Area community by giving Visa gift cards out to people that need it most. So what did you do off the field to just help out the Bay community and be a good citizen?
Yeah, it's hard because you're not supposed to really get in contact with people right now or anything like that. But we did what we could. I know that it's been a trying time for everybody. It's been a really hard year, or almost 2 years now, between people losing jobs and corporations and restaurants and all different types of stuff shutting down and all that. So you just try to find relief anywhere you can. And fortunately, I live here full time. The Bay's my home now. And I try to do as much as I can whenever I can to help give back to the community. And that was a small thing that we did that day. That was that was pretty cool and made a couple people's days and weeks. And hopefully we can do something like that again soon.
Yeah, definitely. And you said small thing. It's a small thing with a big impact. So it's good stuff for doing that. And to wrap up here, coming into the season, you beefed up and gained 25 pounds during this offseason, 25 pounds of muscle. So what have you done over the offseason to physically prepare for this upcoming season?
Well, my training staff and our head strength coach, Dustin Perry, and I are really, really tight. We have a really great relationship. Like I said, I live here all year round, so I'm with him every single day, no matter what's going on. And I worked hard. That's all it is just a lot of lifting, a lot of eating, and getting yourself ready to play football again. And so that's all it was. It was a lot of hard work. Just put your nose down to the grindstone and keep working at it, and you start seeing results a little bit. You get to eat a lot more food, which sometimes can be fun, but can also be tough at the same time. But it was a great off season. I'm proud of the work that I put in. I'm excited to put it to the test, and I have put it to the test here in the first 2 weeks of training camp. But yeah, it was a great off season filled with a lot of hard work, a lot of good, a great plan of strength and conditioning, and sticking to my food and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I'm proud of it. Excited to get going.
Yeah, it's good to hear, and I thank you for all of the time that you had in this interview. It's just been great talking to you, one as a Notre Dame player, and you're just an amazing person. So thanks again.
I appreciate that, man. You too.
Yeah, thank you. So.